So yeah, I'll just start with welcoming you. Hi, I'm Michael Sahota. I'm delighted you've joined me. The purpose of this is really to give you information about the Certified Agile Leadership Training, both generally in terms of what the overall Scrum Alliance program is, as well as specifically what I'm doing with my training and what's happening and kind of experiences people are having with that, and really how it can benefit you, what the benefits are, and what people are experiencing with this. So with that, I'm going to get started. Let me share my screen. I'll go through a few slides, and then what we'll actually just do will depend on what people want to learn about. So let's just share my screen. So let's not start with this slide. Let's go here. So you guys seeing this slide? Q&A Certified Agile Leadership Training. Michael Sahota? Yeah? Okay, great. I can't actually hear anyone. So I think you can unmute. Is that right? Can you guys unmute? Someone unmute and just let me know that's working.
Hello.
Okay, great, thanks. So if you have questions as we go along, you can certainly say that. So skip the slide. So we were to this, where are you? But actually, just take a moment just to see where we are in the world visually. Just click on your location, so we'll get that showing up. The way you can do this is go to polev.com/orgs. That's my sort of custom link. So I want to just start by checking out where are people. You can just go through here and share where you are. That'd be great. There's no login required for this. If you haven't seen this before, this is actually a fantastic way to listen. Listening is actually a very important thing that we cover in the CAL. Doing a better job at listening versus telling. I'm thinking about a background noise, so someone could mute their line. That'd be great. So I'm not actually seeing any responses yet. Is there any people able to hit this URL or understand what's going on? Is this working? This is the first time I tried this one. Okay, that was me. Are people able to? I'm imagining people can connect with the browser. This is not going to work very well if people aren't able to do this.
Mike, are you able to post the URLs in the chat window for everybody?
Yeah. So you guys are seeing this on the screen, right? polev.com/orgs. Maybe you're not seeing.
I don't see the link.
Pardon?
Don't see the links on it. Just the map.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So there's something going very wrong here. So I'm going to start sharing instead of sharing. Okay, I know what's going on. So sorry about this. This is me being a newbie at using Zoom. So if I just share my whole screen, I'll share my whole desktop now. Okay, this is probably going to work now. Here we go. Can you guys see this? polev.com/orgs. Can you see the URL on the screen now?
Sorry, yeah, I can see the URL now.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah. So thanks. This is really nice. So I'll actually put myself in here. Where am I? I'm in Toronto. Okay, great. Thanks so much, everyone. Okay, now the next question is actually really important, which is what would you like to learn about today? So there's a lot of things I could share about the CAL program, but I want to make this about you, about the people here on the call, to make sure you're getting what it is you want. I can guess what that is, but I've learned that listening is much better than just guessing and telling. So you can just take a moment here to say what you'd like to learn about. And this poll is done so that you can upload other people's stuff. So please, if you see something else that someone else has entered here, please enter that. How does the certification work? Okay, great. What's the management and team leadership? Wonderful. What's the curriculum? Yeah, how to help C-level transformation efforts, understand the CAL approach, outcomes, and overview. Great, yeah. So again, you can upload other people's stuff here. So multiple people interested in certification or not. How to help C-level. Yeah, C-level comes up a lot. In fact, the whole core of what I share in my sessions really like a playbook of how do we approach leaders, how do we approach organizations, how do we approach ourselves so we're showing up in the right way to help people. And what's the difference between management and team leadership? Yeah, what is this whole agile leadership thing at all? Like, what does that even mean? Does it even mean anything? Is there such a thing as agile leadership? And if so, what does it actually do? And how do we actually, how's it different from other forms of leadership? Yeah, so a lot of stuff here around management and team leadership, C-level transformation efforts. What are the learning outcomes? What value will I get to support my work? Yeah, it's really great questions. How to make sure the executive understands Scrum. Interesting. Okay. Overview, Agile leadership versus Agile Scrum Master roles. Wow. Okay. Yeah, this is really good. Okay, great. So let me make a note of this. So management and team, C-level, learning outcomes, how to support my work. All right. Let's keep on going here. So this is me. I'll just give you a bit of my background. I've been speaking regularly at conferences. I've written the book on Agile culture in terms of working with it. This is from 4.5 years ago now, so it's quite dated. So the CAL is really where to get my updated version of what's happening, of how I see and what I've learned about organizational growth. And that's really the place I've been the last 5 years, is working with culture, working with leaders, really focused on the organizational level. So not so much team level, but we'll look at the whole system. So this is kind of how I think about myself as an organizational gardener. And yeah, so that's really what I'm about. It's about, hey, why don't we just think about the organization and how can we help it grow, right? Which is a very different question. How can we help people grow? So it's quite a different frame for approaching what's happening. This is me. This is how I show up. And this is what I do and share through the CAL, is how to lovingly invite awareness to give people clarity and choice. Because what we're not about is about telling people to do Agile or making people do Agile, because nothing really good will come of that. So let me give you the backstory of the certification program. So what happened here, this is an overview from the Scrum Alliance of what this is about. And this program came about because a lot of people are asking the Scrum Alliance, saying, hey, we have all these problems with our organizations. We have these problems with leaders. Can you help us? People were asking for years and years. So finally, Pete Behrens led a team of coaches and trainers to create the CAL program. And what they did was very, very beautiful, very, very conscious. They created a high-level set of learning objectives because they know there's no one path to inviting an Agile organization. They know there are many paths to get there. There are many different approaches to leadership. So they created a high-level set of learning objectives with things like leadership models, culture models, examples of transformation case studies, so that many different people who know have been working around this stuff can share what it is they've learned and their approach. So even though all CALs have the same content in terms of high-level learning objectives, the actual detailed content is actually quite different and reflects the individual nature of each educator, each instructor. So this is the sort of the general overview, which is, what's the context for Agile? What's leadership in Agile context look like? What does it mean when we get to an Agile organization? What are the Agile approaches change? So it's all very Agile. As it turns out, when we dive into it, we can look beyond this. And this is kind of my take of it, which is the pillars that I use for structuring my training, which is organizational culture is the foundation. On that, we can talk about organizational growth. How do we invite organizations to grow? Organizational leadership models and leadership development. And the really interesting part here is that this training is aimed at two different audiences. One is for coaches, Scrum Masters, people who want to influence what's happening in the organization and help it become more nimble, more effective. And the other one is for line managers, program managers, executives who actually are responsible for the organization, what happens in them. So this is sort of my approach to this. In terms of certification itself, it's really just show up for the 2 days and listen. That's really the requirement. Show up for 2 days, listen. And that's what the certification is. Very similar to the way the certified Scrum Master was in the beginning. is just go, listen, absorb the information, and then you get the credential. There's a second level, I think this is coming up, no, it's not coming out later, credential, which is based on peer reviews and other types of feedback, a Cal 2. I noticed there's some questions coming in. Can someone just read out loud what some of those are? If because I can't get to that easily from where I am. Yeah, somehow my mouse is doing something very, very funny. Okay, so let me go back out. Yeah, I can't get back to that. Oh, there we go. Let me look at there's a bunch of stuff in chat. Okay, unable to get on Zoom. Okay, so there's nothing I need to pay attention to. Okay. Okay, so I want to go back to the questions and start. There's some content I can go through, which isn't really going to directly address some of the questions. So I'm going to go back to the questions and start responding from there. So if we go back to the questions, let's take these in order. What's the difference between management and team leadership, right? So I guess the first thing I'll declare is that I don't actually tell people what Agile leadership is. I show people how to approach it, what good leadership looks like. We look at a number of different case studies from different companies. And leadership is really about helping others become winners, helping create leaders around us by listening, by fostering safety. So from the perspective that I'm teaching from, there's no real difference between management team leadership. Leadership is a function of an individual and how they show up as a human being. And that's really the position taken. So when we go through this, a lot of people are interested in taking it to help others. How do I help the leader I'm working with? How do I help this executive? And we actually start with how do I help myself? And a fundamental teaching really is that we think about when you're in an airplane and the cabin pressure drops, they tell you, well, put your oxygen mask on yourself first and then assist others. So it's really about inspiring people to start looking very carefully at how they're showing up. And this is the big shift that people often get, is often when they come into MyCal, they're looking for how do I help others? And when they leave, they're going, oh, this is where I need to start with myself. And so that's why a lot of people have these say, it's enlightening or transformational experience, because it's really creating a lab, an environment to model and foster a different way of being. So people energetically get this sense of how things can be very different when we really work to foster an agile mindset in very deep ways. So yeah, this next one of how to help C-level transformation efforts, that's absolutely the whole, the core of what actually happens is, it took a little bit of a challenge for me to get there and a lot of help from my students. But what I share in the Cal now is a playbook for how I've helped organizations in the past and how others can help organizations in terms of working with leaders, the conversations to have, the language to use, the sequence of steps to go and invite them on inviting real growth. The other interesting tidbit I'll share is that I don't advise people to do transformation. Transformation is a big, scary word. It's much healthier to help organizations and leaders understand where they are and how they want to grow. Because growth is a very natural, safe thing, whereas transformation is, there's often an expectation that it should be a certain way or a specific outcome or jump related to that. People can jump in and ask questions as I'm going through these. You can just unmute yourself and ask a question if I'm not quite hitting the mark. I'd really love to do that, because that'll make this a lot more alive versus me looking at my screen and talking. Okay, so yes. Okay, so the next one is, what are the learning outcomes? What value will I get that will support my work? So yeah, let me clarify that. So I don't talk about Agile at all. Agile it is really, for me, a prerequisite. We touch on Agile in terms of how we need to, in terms of plugging into the concepts of the training, which is really about organization, organizational culture, leadership, how leadership functions in organizations, looking at case studies, looking at how to grow ourselves. So that's really the focus of the work, is those 4 pillars. I'll just pull those up again. So learning, yeah. So this for me is really the 4 pillars of where all the energy is focused, right? So what this does when we go through this is it gives us a language and a way of understanding to look at ourselves and how we're showing up and how we are in some ways creating what we're seeing around us, how we're creating resistance, how we're not listening to people, and that's leading to not getting what we want, or how we're ignoring what's in front of us. So there's a personal element, but it's the remainder is really about what are the models and tools that we can use to shift our thinking, in a more productive, growth-oriented way that allows us to overcome the challenges. So Maria Mattarelli, who has been helping me host these trainings in Chicago, has attended a number of times, and her assessment is that, and she's a trainer, certified Scrum trainer. She says, well, this CAL that I do answers about 90% of all the questions that come up in her trainings about people, about how do we make it work in the organization? How do we actually get Agile to work? How do we deal with resistance? So it's very practical. It's very practical in terms of dealing with real world challenges that organizations are facing. And actually, I'll go share one more slide. Sorry for jumping around. So this is like the research from version 1. And they do fantastic work. So, and really culture is the #1 challenge. I wish this thing would go away. #1 challenge with Agile, right? So when we look at this, the ability to change organizational culture, general organizational change. So this is what we're doing when we're actually introducing Agile in organizations. We're actually creating these challenges in a way where we're not honoring what's there in the existing culture and learning how to work with it. So really, from what I see, this is a very real practical challenge that we have where these culture gaps. And I would say that consistently, about 80% of people attending the CAL leave with an awareness that there's a significant culture gap and a very direct, clear understanding of exactly what that culture gap is, what it looks like, and what moves can be made to invite growth or to create growth within that larger organizational context. And that's really what people come out of it with is a lot less of trying to fight with what's there and a lot more of trying to flow with what's there, to flow with what's actually happening in the organizations so that these people are actually experiencing, this is what people are experiencing, so much more joy going back to work because they're seeing how to work effectively in the system. They stop wasting their energy, they stop fighting reality. And that's really the big shift. And I guess I'll say one more thing is that oftentimes there's a lot of unlearning that happens, that a lot of the real value comes from not taking a new piece of knowledge and adding it in to what people are already doing, but to start letting go of all the stuff that's currently happening that isn't serving them. So that's really a powerful shift that a lot of people are experiencing when they come. Okay. Any questions on this item? What are the learning outcomes? What value will I get that will support my work? And again, you can just unmute yourself and ask the question. Okay, I'll carry on. Again, please feel unmute and ask questions if you have one arising. The next question that people would like to hear about is overview, Agile leadership versus Agile Scrum Master roles. So again, the view taken in the version of CAL that I do is that leadership is leadership. It's about how do we help grow people to be their best, and what are the things we can do to foster and act in ways that will engender positive outcomes. And the behaviors are the same whether you're an executive or a Scrum Master or a team member. Okay. Yeah, so essentially, so this is the funny thing. So this is confession here. It's a certified Agile leadership training, but I don't talk about Agile leadership per se or define it. Instead, I talk about what healthy organizations look like, and people make their own inferences of what that means for leadership. And we do spend very specific time talking about what are healthy behaviors, what are unhealthy behaviors, and how we can grow to more healthy places. Okay, I'll go to the next question now. Enabling individuals to be a catalyst for positive change. Yeah, enabling individuals. So this is really about enabling others, or is this about enabling yourself? I would like to learn about enabling individuals. So yeah, this is a big thing that comes up in the training, is whether we're asking about something to help myself or to help others. And one of the big shifts that people come away with is learning that, oh, I need to put the oxygen mask on myself first to look after myself before assisting others. And that's one of the big shifts that comes out of this, is understanding. Because once we look after ourselves, then we're in a position to help others. And yeah, enabling other individuals. It's a really good question. Yeah, I'm not even, I think that for me, that falls naturally out of being a leader, right? Leadership is about helping others show up and foster positive change. That's actually core to leadership. And really the secret there is not so much about what we do, but not doing the things that we do that are not helpful. And the way nature's often equipped us in our lives, where we have unhelpful patterns, lots of very, very, very beautiful patterns that we have as individuals. We have unhelpful patterns. So it's more a matter of not falling into our traps. I'll take one more question here. How to make sure that the executive understands Scrum and aligned with something. It's not getting on the screen. Okay. Yeah, so the words "make sure" actually point to the way that we cause challenges. One of the key teachings from the Cal is not trying to make people do things. Because when we try to make people do things, we're actually essentially in coercion and trying to force other people to do things. And we don't like it when other people try to make us do stuff. So one of the, you call it nonviolence or invitation, would be words that we could use for how to show up. We really want to invite executives to reflect what it is that they want and help them give what they want. And, one big thing is that, it's about letting go, trying to make them want something they don't want for themselves. The other part is that for me personally, it's totally irrelevant whether executives understand Scrum. What they do need to understand is how to support people, enable people, but the actual mechanics of Scrum are not needed or relevant. Clearly, a leadership team needs to have ways of working. It could be Scrum, it could be Kanban, it could be something else. They need to have a way of working together as a leadership team. And many things from Scrum are very applicable, but it doesn't need to be that way, right? I mean, sure, for some executive teams I worked with, one of the first things I did was train them in Scrum after helping them get aligned as a leadership team. But it need not be that way. So really that points to what the Cal is looking to a much broader picture than just Scrum, and looking at how do we help foster the Agile mindset in the organization. So with that, I'm going to come back to the video view so you can see me again. Hi, and open it up for questions. So if people have questions, you can simply just unmute your phone and ask the question. Or I actually look at the chat window, so you'd rather ask with the chat window, you can ask there. Yeah, so I see something in the chat window from Mel. You can't define Agile leadership. Is it because it is nothing but a recycling of what is already known? And it's out. So yeah, leadership is a complex topic. So I sort of approach it like, here's some practical elements of looking at leadership that are useful. So I don't have a definition of this is great leadership. People infer that from what's actually happening, of what are the characteristics and things that support great leadership. So yeah, so I don't actually try to make up an Agile leadership and recycle other definitions, or because if I thought that was useful, I'd do that. Yeah, so then again, we get a question. That's a great question there. What's the difference between Agile leadership and transformational leadership? Yeah, so yeah, that's a great question. So I don't see, again, I don't know what Agile leadership is, honestly. For me, I sort of have this undefinition of it's whatever you need to do to foster an Agile mindset in organizations, right? And Agile mindset is really a much more progressive way of thinking, where people have fire in their belly, where they have freedom, that they can show up how they need to show up. Yeah, so that's what I think of as Agile leadership, is sort of this undefinition. And transformational leadership implies a desire to change from the current state to another state. What I invite people to do rather than have transformational leadership is probably something more like growth-oriented leadership, or host leadership is probably more. But again, all of these definitions are in some ways limiting. So I'm really inviting people to a much more open system of looking at what are the micro behaviors that we want to foster and cultivate, rather than trying to say, oh, this is the one thing. Because there is no the one thing for all contexts. We live in a complex world. So what may be really wonderful in one environment will be terrible in another environment. So I'm not proposing there's the one thing. I'm proposing that we need to look at how we're showing up as leaders and understand how we can show up differently to foster the kind of success we want. Can Agile survive with a micromanager in charge? Only if someone protects them from the micromanager, such as a Scrum Master, and creates a bubble around it. And that kind of points to this whole notion of micromanager, points to the challenge that we really have with leadership is the consciousness of leadership is often very low. And so no matter what we do around the structures, around the practices of Scrum or other parts of Agile, it doesn't really help us unless we actually have the right consciousness, the right mindset, the right way of thinking from leadership. And without that, nothing really of any good will happen, is the sad truth. A manager once told me his job was to make decisions. How to move this mindset to empowering the team so they're qualified to establish clear boundaries. Yeah, so if a manager believes his job is to make decisions and he wants to do that, he's given the power by the organization. So why fight with them? Right? We can invite awareness that by asking, well, what is it you want for this team? Do you want this to be a great team? And start connecting with what his desire is. Because once we connect with the desire that he has, we can help point out that some of the behaviors and choices he's making is not supporting his desire. But it really starts with listening, right? Instead of telling them to empower the team, telling them to let them make decisions, telling, it's listening. Like, what is it that's important for you? What is it that you need here to be successful in your role? And then helping them see how their behaviors are not aligned with that or aligned with that. So that's really the other part. The other thing that that's covered in the Cal training that I do is using decision cards to use the advice process. So it's a way to help make it clear what decisions people are allowed to make, team members are allowed to make, the team's allowed to make, versus what happens, what decisions are made by people in the hierarchy. Okay, great. I'm going to go on the next question now. Thanks, Bob, for that. So lots of questions. Let me scroll up. So Anna says, do you think Agile works better in project already delivered, continuous? Yeah, so Anna, your question is about what context Agile works better from a team level. I could answer that, but I'm going to stay focused on the Cal. So the Cal is not looking at team level. It's looking at whole organization, or it could be like a whole department. And how do we foster success around that? So what I really see is that Agile is a very beautiful approach for teams, but it doesn't really tell us what to do with the whole department or the whole organization. And so that's why the Cal is there, because it gives us that answer. It gives us some, not there's the answer, but it gives us an answer to how to approach it, which we do not get with out-of-the-box Scrum, which is very much focused on teams. So Ilustratio says, on your course, is it a given that everyone already understands Scrum? So even though this is through the Scrum Alliance, there's no requirement to understand the mechanics of Scrum. What I do want is some people to have a basic understanding of Agile and what Agile is. That's really a sufficient context. But I have people who have no understanding of Agile at all who come to the training and come away with a lot, because again, the training is not about Agile. It's about how to foster a context where Agile can actually work. Great, thank you for that question. Next question. We've got a bunch of business departments where there are some differences in perspectives about what a great environment for an employee is. Oh yeah, they're hugely different perspectives. That's a fantastic observation. Yeah, people often have radically at different environments what great means. Yes, so then there are different ideas of what happens with engineering, with autonomy. Others in sales have quite different mindset. Yeah. Do you have experience with this? Oh, wait, scrolled on me. Do you have experience with this type of challenge? Is it a problem? If it is there anything you do to find it effective to change mindsets? So I think so one of the tools that people walk away with from the Cal is really a clear way of understanding what is the way of thinking, what is the culture, what is the mindset. And this is not uniform, right? It's going to vary from teams. It's going to vary especially by departments. Departments can have very, very different mindsets. Or even as you move up different layers of the hierarchy, you can get different mindsets. So it's a way to understand what's there. So once we understand what's there and we accept it, then we can start making valuable decisions about what to do about it, right? But without actually having an understanding, a clear understanding of what's there, we're often sort of trying to make little micro changes without understanding the whole picture. So really what people are walking away with is a toolkit, a way to help really looking at what's happening in the organization so that we stop causing harm to others and harm to ourselves. Okay, so I'm going to keep on going. So yeah, anyway, so lots of experience with the challenge. That's really, yeah, how do these groups working together? How do we create culture bubbles? This is something we talk about in the CAL. So the next question is from Chazba. I'm sorry, I got your name wrong. How do you explain why it is better to have the team accountable rather than the individual? Question from the CEO, who will I fire then? Yeah, so that's a really fascinating question. It presupposes that I believe the team should be accountable rather than individuals. One of the lessons from very conscious organizations is all the individuals hold themselves accountable, hold their peers accountable. When we shift to that consciousness, that way of being, where we all hold each other accountable, this question goes away, right? In the short term, the challenge is that because we're coming from a mindset of control, and people are disenfranchised because of that control, they're not stepping into that ownership, right? And the way we get there is we actually start giving away power, we start giving away control, so people are given a chance to step up and start owning things. And from that, that's where the accountability comes from, and that's where the results come from. Yeah, so I don't know if I'd actually, so I think, yeah, make the team accountable. That's a typical Scrum move, but I wouldn't actually recommend that. When it's good, it can be useful as a stepping stone, but really to get to an agile mindset in the organization, we need to move beyond that. This is a perfect example of Scrum moves being very good for helping teams be successful, but setting the whole organization up for failure because it doesn't create a holistic system that includes the management team. Yeah. And that's exactly why the CAL is so beautiful and why it's so desperately needed. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, even this question about the CEO, of who will I fire then? You know, really the job of the CEO is to foster a great culture in an organization, foster people who have fire in their belly. And if people don't have fire in their belly, it's their job to look after that, right? In very occasions, it actually lead to firing. Usually actually means having a conversation like, hey, I noticed you're not really passionate about being here. What do you want to do about it? Right? Which is coming from a place of love, of like, what have we done to disengage you? I'm so sorry. Right? When we come from that place, then just this beautiful growth can start emerging of people who are disengaged, becoming engaged and really passionate and making things happen for the organization. Okay. I'm going to keep on going.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Sorry, Michael, quick question on
Yeah.
that where you said, basically the Scrum mentality is great for a team, but it sets the business up for failure.
Yeah.
How would you define and grow that to actually move past that? What's that step that you see that's the next one past that?
Yeah, so I think that's a failed starting point. The starting with Scrum and starting with teams is actually, you've actually set yourself up for failure already. The whole model in the CAL 2, CAL 1, the way I do it, is to take a step back and let go of Agile and look at the broader picture on culture and leadership and what do we do around it. So actually starting from that place is actually setting up the failure. So it's good in the short term at a team level. It's terrible organizationally, unless, there's an unless here, unless the organization is very much aligned with the Agile mindset, already culturally a very good place. 99% that's not the case. That's why I'm making this generalization. Very rarely is it the case that people just start doing things at the teams and it just percolates and bubbles up and everyone just, starts doing wonderful things. 99% of the time it's not that. Yeah, thank you for that question. Yeah, you guys are getting some really, really juicy topics here. I see a question from Vinay. A lot of organizations have not thought about natural role progressions in an Agile environment. There are roles like Scrum Master, Senior Scrum Master, blah, 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 blah. What is your take on how leadership should address this? So Vinay, so what this is speaking to is that there's a presupposition here that we want very strong role definitions for individuals. And the really clear, crisp lesson from high performance organizations is that they let go of these crisp role definitions. And they tend to have micro roles where someone takes something on that's very specific, not these really, really strong, heavy roles. That can be useful again, it's a bootstrap mechanism, but longer term, when we look at the holistic big picture, is about having micro roles, like, oh, who's going to act as facilitator for these Scrum meetings, right? Who's going to coach other team members? And these can be micro roles that people pick up and let go of. And this, we see this already in the Agile community with very advanced teams where they let go of the role of Scrum Master, right? Even, I took my, CSM with Ken Schwaber in 2004. This was actually part of it. It's like, well, yeah, actually, this is a role that goes away. And it's seen more like an Agile coach role in extreme programming. But a lot of people don't understand that. And they think Scrum Master is a role forever for team. But once the team grows to maturity where everyone's fluent and comfortable and they're able to coach each other, there's no need for having a designated coach. I mean, or you can have a floating person who comes in for very specific needs. I mean, that's what we see in more conscious organizations. So Scrum in some ways is like it's a way to start bootstrapping to a more conscious way of working. And it's very, very helpful that way. And it's still, I'm not saying don't do that move. If that move is appropriate in your context, then do it. Yeah. So thanks for that question. Bartosz asks, how to grow from team level to organizational level coaching? Yeah, that's a really, really great question. I don't know if I have an answer for that. So it's just do stuff. Like if you're working at a team level, you're really looking, and you have some of the filters and lenses that you get from this Cal certification, or the experience that I give, you'll start being able to see stuff at the organization level happening. And you can start having conversations about it. It'll just happen very naturally. It'll just happen very naturally that you start having conversations of much broader scope based on the context of, oh, I'm trying to help this team succeed. There's this impediment. I'm not sure I really like that word, but there's an impediment to our team that I'm mandated to go look at. Oh, and this touches other teams, so I'm involving the other Scrum Masters. So it'll happen very naturally. And when we come from a place of compassion and listening and understanding, then we actually can start having those conversations. The challenge is we often don't come from that place. We often come from a place of, Agile evangelist and, I know everything, and not listening, but of telling. And when we come from that place of telling, we meet a lot of resistance. So yeah, that's one thing I work at helping people let go of, or inviting them to let go of. So Bob said, it sounds like the effort is to work with existing mindsets rather than attempt to change them. I assume that's a scale. What is the example of a disaster? So Bob, that's a fantastic observation. Yeah. So really it's about starting from where we are and looking really carefully, honestly about where we are. And then asking the system, what does it want for itself, right? Like if you've ever been to an open space, we start with, hey, what do people want to talk about? And we talk about that. And out of that, there's so much energy and growth. And when we do that with teams, when we do that with organizations, amazing things unfold. Amazing things unfold. The challenges we're often so used to and attached to just doing Agile, doing Scrum, that we don't stop to listen. And that's really the big thing. And really, and this is what happens to some people who attend my training, is they come and they go, oh yeah, my organization has a very poor mindset, has a very poor organizational culture, and it doesn't want to change. And there's no way I can be effective in this environment. And then they go leave and they go somewhere else, and they're happy in their place. And it's good for them. It's good for the company they left, because they were miserable. And they were like this miserable, unhappy Agile evangelist, and it wasn't working for them, and it wasn't working for people around them. So yeah, so I don't know if there is a disastrous mindset that's like somewhat judgmental. It's more like, well, the mindset, the culture is where it's at, and is that something aligned with where I want to be right now, or what I want to work with? And I will share that I worked at a telco every Monday for about a year and a half, and it was a very challenging environment. But every Monday when I went in, I go, well, how can I add value? How can I be of use here? And I had amazing days, because I came from that place of heart. Right? And when we come from that mindset, then fantastic things will happen. But that's the trick. But that requires a lot of growth, because it was hard to get there. So Mel says, leadership is about inclusiveness. How can Agile promoters ensure that no one is disenfranchised? Yeah, so it is. That's beautiful. Leadership is about inclusiveness. So I think the trap right there is the word Agile promoters. So one of the things I invite people to do when they leave my training is to stop being Agile promoters, to stop promoting Agile, stop being Agile evangelists. A lot of people have a hard time with this. One gentleman even cried between day 1 and day 2 as he let go of his identity as an Agile evangelist, because he believed it so strongly, and I believed it so strongly for many years. But the thing is that when we act in this role of Agile evangelist, we actually cause harm to others because we're telling. Evangelism is a telling activity. Whereas we know from all leadership, it's much better to listen first, right? Like, so today, I modeled that by listening to what it is you want to hear about. And I followed in on that, right? Rather than trying to have some, canned content that I'm walking you through, right? So that's what I'm actually modeling here on this call itself, to start with listening. And the disenfranchised comes back to, are we listening? Are we asking people what they want? And oftentimes when we're talking about shifting the way things are working, there are different people with different perspectives. And if we actually want to move forward, we actually have to have a coherence around what it is we want to undertake. And that doesn't mean that everyone comes on the voyage. If we say, hey, we're going over here, the bus is going to Las Vegas. Not everyone wants to go to Las Vegas, and that's okay. Not everyone should, but we should help those people find places elsewhere if they don't want to go on the journey with us. And that's okay. Right. But it's coming from this sort of much more caring, loving places is often missing from how we approach change in our organizations. Brendan asks, what should people do to prepare for Cal training? So about 2 weeks in advance of the training, I share some reading materials, some videos to help people understand what amazing culture looks like. And these case studies take us beyond Agile. They're really looking at amazing organizations like Valve or Zappos, really fantastic companies. If you've read the book Reinventing Organizations, certainly some of the case studies there are very, very beautiful. But I don't know if there's anything that people need to prepare, because really what happens in the Cal training is people get an experience and are invited to a different dimension with a different mindset and are embedded in that. And then from that, there's usually a lot of letting go and new ideas popping up. So I think the invitation I have for people who come is to come with an open mind, come with awareness of assumptions and beliefs. To prepare, get lots of sleep, be well rested, read the case studies. Not everyone puts the 2 to 3 hours in to read them. Baron says, you mentioned Cal 2. Can you give a quick overview on what's involved, both the course and the outcome in any certification? So Cal 2 is the next certification after the Cal. I will be running one either later this year or early next year. This will be a 5-day intensive. Probably the first 3 days will be much more focused on our individual growth and how we're showing up. And the second 2 days around, okay, now that we're clear and we've worked on ourselves, how do we work with the organizational systems? How do we work with leaders? How do we help others, right? So we spend time putting the mask on ourselves first, and then we spend some time looking at how to assist others. So I've been very busy, so I haven't had time to or prioritize putting time into clarifying when that is, or exactly even finalizing what I want to do for the content. I know there's a peer review part of it, it's about figuring out what I want to do around that. So that's an open question. I have been getting very strong feedback that many people who finish the Cal 1 go, well, when is your Cal 2? So I've been somewhat remiss, or certainly disappointing people for not responding fully to that yet. Okay, so those are all the questions I've seen in the chat. Are there any other questions that people like to ask before we close? Okay, so thank you so much. No, sorry, I thought something came up there. Okay, so thank you so much, everyone, for. Oh, Henry's got a question. I saw that you recorded this. Where can I find the recording? We'll make sure the recording gets posted somewhere. I think Brendan will probably post it somewhere. I'll certainly post it somewhere on my website and tweet it and all that sort of stuff once it's there. So thanks for that question, Henry. So Bob has another question, so I'll take Bob's question. Yeah, Brendan says he'll post the Equinox site. Thank you, Brendan. If a business has a mandate to become agile, are destined to be disappointed. Seems the business leader must have some idea of the vision. Yeah, sometimes wrapped in ceremonies, how to deal. So yeah, so I think probably one of the big shifts is letting go of big A agile and little A agile, and then asking, well, what does this little A agile mean for us? What does it look like? When we're little A agile, how will people be behaving? How will leaders be behaving? How will we be functioning? And really get an idea of what that future state, not quite future state, but what is that star on the horizon that we're aiming towards? So that we understand that we're embarking on a journey. It's not like a transformation with an end state. But what does it look like? How will we know we're moving the right direction? And the challenge is the level of consciousness of the tools we're using, the kinds of tools we're using aren't really amenable. So there's an upgrade that happens when people come to the Cal of being able to use different language and different models of thinking about this so that there's actually a place to be successful. Um, yeah, so business leaders often have some idea of the vision, but the way they're behaving isn't actually aligned with what they're asking for. There's a very beautiful friend of mine named Pascal Pink, and he says basically it's basically just this one thing. It's like clarifying with leaders what they want, and then when they're not behaving that way in line with what they want, you say, well, I just want to check in with you. You said you wanted this, but the way you're behaving doesn't seem to support that. What do you want to do about it? And just when we do that in a very loving, caring way, we can suddenly help leaders understand what they're doing to undermine what it is they actually want and help them get what they want. And we help the leaders get what they want, that's aligned with what's healthy for the whole organization. It's a very, very beautiful thing. Yeah, so thanks for that question. Yeah, so actually, I want to say one more thing. It says about ceremonies. Yeah, so ceremonies aren't about what people want. Like when you ask people, why do you want Agile? Agile is never the answer. Scrum's never the answer for why they want Agile. They want it for some other reason. Maybe to have people who are engaged, maybe to have amazing business results, maybe to have a quality product. Like these are the reasons that come up. So that's one of the key things that people get as a takeaway is how to ask this question, how to get their answers, and how to help people reorient towards a bigger picture that's much larger than Agile. So with that, I'm going to say thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate you taking time out of your morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world, and wish you all the best. So thanks so much for joining, and have hope to see you at one of my trainings. Or
Thanks,
please
Michael.
continue to follow me online as I post videos and blogs of all the stuff I'm doing. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Bye. I'll give you the shot of Toronto downtown. Bye, Toronto. Okay. All right. Take care.
Michael.